Hey, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Morning Coffee with Twana, a Destiny Education production. It's so good to see you. I am thrilled to be here. I have to tell you that I kind of cheated today. I did not go out of my way to order coffee this week. We have been running around like chickens with our head chopped off. We are so excited over here. We had a big celebration last night. We finished our men's Bible leadership class, and so that's ready to launch. All the marketing and stuff will start hitting the floor and hitting the ground and running here over this Labor Day weekend. While you guys are off having a good time, we will be out making sure that your life can change. We are super excited about it and just completely thrilled. I do apologize. There's something about wearing this makeup that just causes my face to itch, my nose itch. It's a mess. It's a mess. So I got him to let me put my hair in a ponytail today. And that is about as far as I'm going to go. No, I can't get him to let me not wear makeup. But I tried. Today is going to be a hard lesson. And it's coming out of the book of Jude. And Jude it's not a warm and fuzzy. I love it, but it's not a warm and fuzzy book. And the reason that we're coming out of Jude is because there is just so much craziness going on in our world. The levels of chaos and insanity that we are seeing every day is just appalling. Every time you turn around, somebody's being shot. Every time you turn around, there are cops being accused and going to prison over doing harm to people. There's this new goon squad in Mississippi who took two black men and made them do craziness. So I really wanted to talk to you about it because a lot of these people who are doing these atrocities, like the Karens and all of those who are out there, they're doing it a lot of times in the name of Jesus. And so I really want you to understand what it looks like when Jesus is really in your life and what it looks like when Jesus is not at all in your life. And so sometimes people say these things, right? Oh, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke you. But I have to be doing something, literally doing something that is against the Bible. Standing in a park is not against the Bible. And so invoking that name is a problem. It's not okay. And what it does is it creates a hatred in people for a man who has no part of that level of craziness. So today, like I said, we're going to come out of the book of Jude. We're going to do verses 5 through 13. And the support verses for this first section are Romans 3:23, Genesis 6, 2 and 4 and 11 are those verses. So, you ready to get started? Oh, by the way, the coffee of today is Colombian. Yes, I didn't get another chance. I didn't get a chance last week to order new coffee. You ready? So I want to remind you, though you already know these things, that Jesus first rescued the nation of Israel from Egypt, but later he destroyed those who did not remain faithful. And I remind you of the angels who did not stay within the limits of authority God gave them, but left the place where they belonged. God has kept them securely chained in prisons of darkness, waiting for the day of judgment. And don't forget Sodom and Gomorrah and their neighboring towns, which were filled with immorality and every kind of sexual perversion. Those cities were destroyed by fire and serve as a warning of the eternal fire of God's judgment. In the same way, these people who claim authority from their dreams live immoral lives. defy authority, and scoff at supernatural beings. But even Michael, one of the mightiest of the angels, did not dare accuse the devil of blasphemy, but simply said, "The Lord rebuke you." This took place when Michael was arguing with the devil about Moses' body. But these people scoff at things they do not understand. Like unthinking animals, they do whatever their instincts tell them. And so they bring about their own destruction. Let me read that again. And so they bring about their own destruction. What sorrow awaits them? For they follow the footsteps of Cain, who killed his brother. Like Balaam, they deceive people for money, and like Korah, they perish in their rebellion. When these people eat with you in your fellowship meals commemorating the Lord's love, they are like dangerous reefs that can shipwreck you. They are like shameless shepherds who care only for themselves. They are like clouds blowing over the land without giving any rain. They are like trees in autumn. They are doubly dead, for they bear no fruit and have been pulled up by the roots. They are like wild waves of the sea, churning up the foam of their shameful deeds. They are like wandering stars, doomed forever to blackest darkness. I chose to take that out of the New Living Translation because I wanted it to be something that spoke in plain English that you could really understand. Today, because instead of making this an hour-long production, we're going to only keep it to about a half hour. Today we're only going to talk about verses 5 through 7. And then next Saturday we'll talk about 8 through 11, and then the following Saturday we'll do 12 through 13. So, I want to remind you, though you already know these things, that Jesus first rescued the nation of Israel from Egypt. Anyone who is a servant of Jesus has been rescued from some form of an Egypt. He is the one who comes down, gets us out of our mess, cleans us up, and gives us the opportunity at a new life. Too many people forget that. Because when we forget where we came from, all we can do is cause more destruction. Because forgetting where you came from is the same as lying about who you are. Just because Jesus finds you doesn't mean you lose that previous part of you. Oh no. You don't turn around and begrudge people who are living the same life that you were before Jesus found you, because that at the core is who you are. It's only because of him that you have gotten better. It's only because of him that you are living a different life. And so what you're finding when you see these things is that people like to live on this little narrow bridge that they feel is up above the crowd. The problem is that when you think you're above the crowd, you're actually below the crowd, and they are tromping all over you. So just because someone says they are a Christian and they do the things that they think represent a Christian, I want you to be mindful of something. Just because I say it is, doesn't make it so. I want to tell you a story about a gentleman I once met. I never got his name, and he knew nothing about me. And I was working in a location off in the southern part of the Midwest. Well, southeastern part of the Midwest. And we were standing at a front desk at a hotel. And he had this big, enormous cross on his chest. So I asked him, "Why you got that cross on?" He goes, "It's my religion." I said, "Well, what's your religion?" He says, "Christian." I said, Okay, well, tell me about it. And he goes, I don't talk about my religion. Wrong answer. Wrong. Absolutely not. That is your indication that you are not dealing with someone who serves Jesus. Get this very clear, ladies and gentlemen. Religion and Jesus are two different things. And I'm going to tell you, I love my bishop to death, but he and I are not going to see eye to eye on this. God created all of this. God did not create himself or anything that we see as a religion. If I create a program and somebody attempts to bow to the program, I'm going to say, why are you bowing to the program? Oh my God, this is my new religion. What is this, an REM song? Like, for real? No, stand up. That's not what this is about. It's not a religion. It just isn't. Jesus is Jesus. Religion is a man-made construct that infuses rules and regulations that are not written in the books of the Bible. People who stand up in service and bow down in service and stand up in service and hit their knees on this. God doesn't tell you to do all that. God is like, I'm a God of order. Listen, come, worship me, sing, dance, praise, enjoy everything that I have made for you. Like, I want all of you to remember that before churches were in formal buildings, where they were was in individuals' houses. And what they would do is they would get together, they would praise, they would dance, they would talk about the Lord, talk about Jesus, and then they would eat. Those are 5 things that made up their service. They weren't practicing a religion, but they were dying for it because they weren't following the religion of that time. When you look at Jesus as a religion, and here's the problem with Jesus being made a religion, then he's not real. He's not someone that you look at and say, he is truly the answer to my problems. He's a puff of air. And you lean on him because you think that he's better than the something or nothing that you have to lean on. That is not who Jesus is. He is a living, breathing human who walked the face of the earth, who is the only begotten Son of his Father God, Yahweh, Jehovah. That's who he is. He is not some prophet. He is not somebody who's here to make you feel better. He's here to grow you up. You're going to have bad days. You will have bad days. But Jesus is not a figment of your imagination. And until the day comes that you decide to make him a part of your everyday life, you are never going to get to see who he truly is. So before we move on to the next part, I want to share kind of a testimony with you. You know, I was 31 when he snatched me out of the world. And I mean, he snatched me. I was not one of those people who grew up in church and thought, oh, I think I just love God. No, I was like, Jesus who? If God were all that powerful, why does he need a Jesus? I was a mess, right? He snatched me out. And since then, I have seen miracles, things that are without explanation. Nothing I have ever done has been normal, but it has not stopped me from living a life that makes people go, what? And it was so great. One day I was at lunch with my bishop and his wife, and she was so funny. She goes, you know, sometimes the things that Jesus has you do, they seem kind of crazy. And it was funny because she was struggling. Like, she's like, oh God, I don't want to offend her. And I'm like, right? Don't they though? When I tell you that the things Jesus asks you to do are crazy, By this world standards, they're insane. The number of times he picks me up out of the state of California and moves me to a state I've never been to, takes me to another state I've never been to, says, I want you to film in Alaska. I'm like, can we film in Tahiti? Alaska. I go up to Alaska. I'm like, why people always have a talk about how expensive it is? It's only $500 for plane fare. So two of us got to go up to Alaska for $500. Then we got to experience what it was like to not have like dark at all. It was terrible. Oh my God. We were in Juneau. Serving Jesus gives you an exciting life. It creates opportunities that you weren't ever going to have. It's an amazing existence. It's fun, but you have to not be so stuck in what you think you have. The children of Israel, when they got brought out of Egypt, they walked on dry ground surrounded by 300-foot walls of water. And they had the audacity to turn on God and say, He brought us out here from Egypt. Now He's just going to let us starve? And you wonder why Yahweh said, you know what? Leave them out there. They're not going into the promised land, not a single solitary one of them. And it's not like He did it the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time, or even the 10th time. It wasn't until they had already seen what He could do, and they denied the power therein, that He said, enough is enough. So, when these people call themselves Christians, the Israelites said they were the chosen ones of God, and He let them die. You want to know why? It wasn't because He was mean. It was because just because you say it doesn't make it so. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. If the fruit is bad, so is the tree. So I can scream Jesus till the cows come home. But if my fruit doesn't support it, then what kind of tree do I have? And that's what I want you to start thinking when you're dealing with these people out here that you're seeing calling on the J name, acting like they're holier than thou. They are not, because their fruit is bad. So, the last thing I want to touch on before we take off for the day is something that Jude says within his passage that a lot of people miss. He said, I remind you of the angels who did not stay within the limits of authority God gave them, but left the place where they belonged. God has kept them securely chained in prisons of darkness, waiting for the great day of judgment. Those are the sons of God. So what were the sons of God? The sons of God were 200 angels that decided that they wanted to make wives of human women. The design that God did for women is just phenomenal. It was beautiful, so much so that the angels stepped out of heaven to go live among humans. Problem was, they caused a lot of problems here on earth. And they brought stuff that we weren't ready for. Weapons of war, weapons of all of this that was known of in heaven. Like everybody knew what they were, but we didn't. And it really wasn't necessary for us to know that, because, people always think that when parents don't tell their children everything, that it's because they're trying to control them. But how about we look at that a little differently and with a little more logic and reason? Why would we tell a 2-year-old about something that they are not ready for? They're not ready. When you're not ready, I'm sorry, you're just not ready. It's not catastrophic. It's not the end of the world. It's not some air of control. You are not ready. And people weren't ready. So the sons of men procreated with human women. And they produced a species called the Nephilim. And the Nephilim were giants. 8, 9, 10, 12, sometimes taller feet tall. Originally, they were people of renown. They were people that other humans looked to and were like, oh my God, they're going to save us. They're dynamic. They're this, they're that, they're the other. But the problem is they were unauthorized. And here's what that meant. That meant when they reached a certain point, they lost their ever-loving mind. And they went crazy. And they did all sorts of things that were evil. Were they evil? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, in the book of Enoch, God is very clear that he did not hold the Nephilim responsible for anything that they did, because they could not control that they were born into this world. Well, many of you like to think that God doesn't love us, that he's mean, that he's masochistic, that he's all that. He's just a father. He's just a father. And as a father, he knows what we're ready for and what we're not ready for. And so while we sit back and we look at these things that are going on in the world, we have to understand that every single person in this world today is making a choice. And it's a choice for the Father or it's a choice against the Father. But it is a choice. And it's not him who's making it. It's you who's making it. It's you who's responsible for the decision that you make. Because he keeps sending you person after person after person to tell you he's here. Jesus is here. And he's calling you. See, he's calling those who will listen. I'll come to the door and I'll knock. And if you let me in, we'll have coffee. That's why this is called Saturday Morning Coffee. You are dealing with a God who loves you. And I know that when you are not there, it is really, really hard to see. And it's really hard to shut out the noise. Those angels forsook heaven so that they could be with human women. But there were only 200 of them, and there are billions of angels. So if 200 out of billions did something that crazy, that says something about the 200. Some people say, well, a third of heaven fell. And it still left billions. So that says something about the demons who fell and about the 200. Whenever you focus on what you don't have, you will always create more of what you don't have than what you do. Today, those 200 angels are in chains, where they will be bound until Jesus comes, wraps everybody up who's destroying the earth, and sets them up on fire. Bye. You had your chance. You sat here. You went through this time, and this was the path that you chose. So now I'm allowing you to live with your choice. And that's what the verse says in verse 5. So I want to remind you, though you already knew these things, that Jesus first rescued the nation of Israel from Egypt, but later he destroyed those who did not remain faithful. If you are not faithful, you're not faithful. You get to choose whether or not you're corrupted. But don't allow your decision to be made based on the actions of people who claim to be something that they're not. With all due respect, y'all, I can claim to be a fish. I'm one heck of a fish, standing 6 feet 1 inches tall and speaking with a human voice. I can wish that I was a fish till the cows come home. It does not make me a fish. Real love disciplines you. It gives you punishments for your bad decisions. Otherwise, you do not come to a place of growth. You don't grow up. Real love is not, I'm not going to scold you. I'm not going to deal with you. I'm just going to let you do whatever it is you do. That's not love at all. As a matter of fact, the Bible calls that hatred. So those people who refuse to put a rod to their child actually hate their children. They do not love them. And I know that that's hard to hear, but the Bible is clear. I didn't write the Bible, y'all. I'm just sharing with you the reality of who God is. If I love my child, I will discipline them. And if I hate them, I will not. So you can say what you want to, but just because you say it doesn't make it so. We have to be willing to take responsibility for our actions and our choices. And that's just a fact. You are the one who's making the choice. And putting a decision off on somebody else so that they'll make it because you don't want to, that's still a choice. And it's still a decision. Because most grown people will not make decisions for other grown people. We're going to stop here for today. We'll finish this up next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you next weekend for Saturday morning coffee. Have a great week.